What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Cardfellas Show. We are live here Wednesday night on YouTube. And today we're going to go back into the time machine, and we're going to go back to a year that's fairly significant to both of us because I think this is accurate on your part, Chris. But 1976, that was the year I was born. So it's kind of a relevant year. 76 for you, too, as well, right?
Yeah, now we've just given away our passwords to everyone on the internet. But
yeah, that's true. We'll have to change those quickly. We do have a live show, so they could break into all of our accounts while we're live here. But we are going to, spin the wheel, and we're on football. And when you think about football, you think, okay, what happened back in 1976? Well, Tops was the big game in town. They were the only game in town, and this year's set was. Chock full of Hall of Famers, not really big on rookie quarterbacks, not really big on rookies in general, but there was one guy that had a pretty good career, and it was his rookie year, and you see those cards at card shows very often, the Walter Payton rookie card. So we were talking about 1976 Tops football.
Yeah, the bicentennial year, that was another season in which the Minnesota Vikings lost the Super Bowl at the end of. So I know that you probably don't remember that game, but
I was not there. I don't remember it, but every year ends with them losing or not winning a Super Bowl. That's what I thought you were going to say. But that when they actually went to the Super Bowl and lost. Yes.
Yeah. Well, what's funny, is Tops, and again with this set, same way. No one got a rookie card the year they were drafted, but Tampa Bay and Seattle both came into the NFL that year, and both teams had cards, so they were able to kind of get some pictures, I think, during camp and put the cards out. That year was also the year that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers went 0-14. And I learned something today that I didn't know, is that the Buccaneers were actually in the AFC West that first year. So they were in the AFC West. They went 0-14. Head coach was John McKay, and one of my favorite lines ever, someone in a press conference asked him how he felt about the execution of his team that day, and his answer was, "I'm in favor of it." So,
just the best coach's quote of all time. Period.
Right? Yeah,
no doubt about it.
It's got to be, and it's almost like that question had been planted. Like, how did he know that?
Absolutely. Like, that's the thing about it. Talk about a comedic performance at the highest level, and that was it. So, the Buccaneers and Seahawks. Welcome to the card collecting world.
The interesting thing was, so the next year they went to the NFC Central, and they won 2 games. And after both of those wins, they got coaches fired that were actually pretty legendary coaches. So Hank Stram was fired when they beat the Saints. And then the next game, they played the St. Louis Cardinals. Don Coryell got fired after they lost to them. So they won 2 games that year, and both games they got a kind of a big name coach fired. So that was kind of cool.
Yes, and 2 teams that have won Super Bowls.
Right.
So, that more than we could say for the Minnesota Vikings.
So anyway, let's talk about the cards.
We should. That's what we're here for, right?
Right. 528 cards in the set. And the boxes were very, very cool. We'll bring up the box there. And that is that looks like 1976. The packs, you had 10 cards in a pack. So that's kind of a 1976 looking pack there as well. But those cards would get released there in the fall. That year earlier, the January earlier, we would have the Steelers be the Super Bowl champions. So everybody was looking for those Steelers cards that year. They had the steel curtain, totally dominant defense. And that team would end up winning 4 Super Bowls throughout the 70s. And those were the cards that you were looking for, except for, like you said, that one guy.
Yeah, so, there it is. It's a beautiful card. I'm a big Walter Payton fan here. I think I've mentioned it on the show many times. The interesting thing about this set and these cards specifically, it looks like he's a Green Bay Packer. When you look at the card, it's like green and yellow. Tops in this year didn't even care to match up the colors of the cards with the colors of the uniforms or anything. They just said, This is the cards colors that we're going to do. A lot of neon. There's a lot of, bright pink. And so you'd see like the Steelers players with bright pink. And so the Walter Payton card, and as we described the card, it has, they had the white border, classic white border. They had kind of a string of the, color around it. Then the football in the lower left with the team name in it. Then the player's name and their position in the bottom right. And so very clean, classic design, and really a tough card to keep in shape. As we'll talk through, we always kind of end the show with kind of the PSA report. But, that white border on these cards really were tough to keep in really good condition. There's a lot of flaking, a lot of chipping. So a lot of things happening with this card, but the first thing that when you look at these cards as a whole is that stood out to me, Chris, was the loud colors. Yeah. And it just doesn't match what it just doesn't match. And it was really eye-opening to see that. And I know if people are listening to us on the podcast, this is not quite the card porn we talked about last time with the Topps Basketball Archives, but these cards are fascinating. Like we were looking at a Ed Too Tall Jones card, and it was a neon green football. Like there's nothing about that screams Cowboys, except for he's in a Cowboys uniform that's iconic. The Cowboys, navy blue and silver. And you said the Steelers were that team of that era. The Cowboys were right there in the NFC as well with a lot of iconic stars, but just odd colors. That's kind of what I was struck by when I was looking at these 1976 Topps football cards.
Yeah, each team had their own color scheme, and the color scheme, like you said, had nothing to do with the actual color scheme of the team. I guess the Rams one has yellow in it. They were
a little bit.
Ron Jaworski there, and that was that as a yellow. But now that Steelers one there with Bradshaw is close. You've got some yellow. There's some red in there though too. And the Cowboys one though is probably the funniest one with the green and the red, which has nothing to do with their actual color scheme. I like the backs of these cards though.
Me too.
You've got the name of the team, and you've got the player, and kind of where they were able to get the player, and some information, and then the stats. But that far right side to me is really the funniest part of the whole thing. Some of them had trivia, and then the other ones would have these mystery questions. And I like this one. It says, "Guess the mystery bear. Clue 1 of 10. Who am I? My birthday is May 15th. I mean, they didn't have Google back then. If I would have saw that, I'd been like, I don't know, Berenstein Bear? I mean, how could you figure this out by their birthday being May 15th?
But you had to collect all the Chicago Bears.
Then, right. You would look through all the Bear cards, and you'd figure out which one had a birthday of May 15th.
So here's my question. Which card had the answer? Was there a card that had the answer? I couldn't figure that out. So I don't know if there's like a key.
It says see other Bear cards.
I know.
So we didn't have Google back then, so you had to figure this stuff out, man. That's why people were smart back then.
Yeah, that's a good point. We were a smarter. 1976 was the year for you had to flex your brain muscle a little bit, and you probably have a debate over who it was, and you couldn't resolve that. So
you and I both used to work in television, and we would get the Friday evening phone call from the tavern. Hey, can you tell me who had the most rushing yards for the Packers in 1964? And I mean, that's how you would learn these things. You would call some poor dude at a TV station that had to look at a book and tell you the answer.
And we had the one computer in our newsroom that had internet. And right. I mean, that's the era that we worked in. But back to these cards. One thing we do need to point out, we're showing this on the screen right now for our podcast listeners, is they did a really good job of designating the Topps All-Pro too. So which players were on the All-Pro? That's in the lower left. We're looking at a Jack Lambert card, who just this card makes you get scared that he's going to kill you, because he was a complete badass on the field. But I want to go back to the back of the card real quick. And one of the things I do want to point out, it's a very classic Topps back. Yeah. Like, I think, you have the tan brown, you have the copper color, the navy blue. Like, it just screams Topps from the 70s and 80s. And that's what I love. And I absolutely love the Topps logo in the upper right. Like, to me, that's the coolest Topps logo. And so it's the T with the swoop underneath. And it's just, I love the back of this card. And it provided some information. It gave you some information about the player. It gave the stats. It gave kind of all the facts and figures that you're looking for. Again, this was our Google back then. And I think, for people who are, of the younger generation that don't understand this, like, this is how we got information about players. And so we handled these cards. We touched them. We felt them. We looked at them because we didn't know everything about Walter Payton, or even, Walter Payton, I know is an icon, but some of the lesser guys, or even the superstars, you didn't know enough that, you felt like this wasn't information that you could absorb and go, oh, wow, he was from Jackson, Mississippi. Oh, he went to Jackson State. You probably knew that, but, this is where you found that out. It wasn't because of Google.
Yeah, I remember running we called them rotisserie leagues in the 1990s, running a baseball rotisserie league.
Rotisserie.
I would score them every week by getting the weekly baseball weekly that was printed by USA Today and go through the box scores. And that's
unbelievable.
How everyone would get their stats on a piece of paper that I would put together every week. That's how nerdy I was back in 1993. We had to score this stuff by hand.
It was a different era. But, let's talk specifically about these cards. So since we're talking about the Payton, this is, obviously, we mentioned this is the prize of the set. And it's the prize of the set by far. Great picture of Walter, a posed picture of him, and probably it looks like a practice jersey. They probably nabbed him at practice and said, hey, can you, flash your pearly whites? His hair looks great. I mean, his smile, it looks like a great posed picture. Great rookie card for him. Obviously, he had iconic runs throughout his career that you could easily snap pictures of him in action. But, for the first card of his career, I like it. I'm a big Walter Payton fan. I think it's just cool. It shows his youth. It shows just kind of like, yeah, I know it kind of has this smirk about him that's like, yeah, I'm going to kick some ass in this league, and I know it, type of thing. So I don't know. He just kind of looks like a 1970s movie star that, just happened to be really good at football. It's like, his headshot was used for his football card.
Yeah. When you see that, you see the kind of the headshot here, it makes you think, Sweetness, that was his nickname.
Yes.
That's what it looked like. He actually struggled a little bit. So, back then, kids, when they would make rookie cards, the rookie card would come out the next year after their rookie season. And we'll actually go through some of these rookie cards in this set. These guys were in the league for 2 or 3 years before they actually had a rookie card.
Yes.
But Walter's rookie year was the year before, and he struggled a little bit. Had a big year in 76, but in 75, not a super year. But he ended up with 16,576 yards. He was the NFL's all-time rushing leader when he retired. Emmitt Smith would go on to break that record with 18,355 yards. But one of the cool things about right now, and I didn't realize this, but Frank Gore just retired.
Yes.
And if you would have told me that Frank Gore had 16,000 yards rushing, I would have told you you're insane. But Frank
he's
Gore,
third, right?
Yeah, third on the list.
Yep.
Yeah, just over Barry Sanders at 15,269. So
longevity for Frank Gore.
Right. Just stayed in the league for a long time and really very, very healthy career. So that was pretty cool.
And now his son's in the league.
Yeah. So that 75 draft that Walter came out of, we've talked a lot about how a lot of these players that become all-time greats, there are guys that are picked just ahead of them that kind of end up, going into, obscurity. But that year, Steve Bartkowski was kind of the jewel of the draft, and he was thought of as the next great quarterback, and was picked by the Falcons and never really achieved what you would think. Then Randy White was selected twice.
Yes.
He ended up becoming a 9-time All-Pro, Super Bowl MVP, got in the Hall of Fame in 1994. Then Ken Huff was the third pick. He was picked by the Colts, and a guy that people don't, he's not a household name, but he ended up being one of the Hogs for the Washington Redskins, ended up going over there. I think he actually retired. No, I think he won one Super Bowl with them. He ended up playing until the mid-'80s. Then Walter was picked fourth by the Bears. But probably the most obscure guy that didn't end up going anywhere was Mac Mitchell, was picked by the Browns, the fifth pick. So the Browns,
Another swing and a miss for the Browns.
Swing and a
Tell
miss
me
there
more.
for the Browns. But then one of the other guys, Robert Brazile, ended up being he was picked 6 by Houston, ended up being a Hall of Fame linebacker. Dr. Doom, they called him. So
how about that? Dr. Doom. And, I did a little bit more research on him based on that nickname, and very much like a Lawrence Taylor type player. If you go back a couple years before Lawrence Taylor, he was that guy. And so, really an interesting discovery. Didn't really watch that era of football because I was just newly born. So, reading some of these names and realizing that this set has over like 60 Hall of Famers in it, not as rookies, but just the set in general. And, in old time football, you're going to find a lot of those Hall of Famers, but the names really pop out, and there's a lot of them. And the next card we're going to talk about, which is, arguably probably the second most iconic card from this set, is the Jack Lambert card that we were talking about. And he just looks like a 1970s football player. He's got the strongest jaw. His workouts probably included, farm work in the off season.
Right.
Like, it's like, okay, I gotta go work on the farm, and we're going to be baling hay, and we're not going to have a tractor, and that's going to be our workout. And so, just a massive linebacker for the Steelers. And like you said, this was not a rookie year for him. He had actually won Defensive Rookie of the Year, won a Super Bowl, I think, and went to a Pro Bowl before he even had a rookie card. So, it's one of those unique cards to this set.
Second round pick of the 74 draft. And like I said, he was a Defensive Player of the Year, all pro. But like you said, nowadays, a guy who gets picked in the second round is probably going to have, 40, 50 cards made of him.
Yeah.
But back then, you had to become an all pro if you were a second round linebacker before you got your card. Then we got Randy White. We talked about him being the number 2 pick. And Randy was a 9-time all pro.
Great stash.
MVP.
Great stash for a 70s guy.
Right.
I mean, that's one of he just looks like a guy who, he Dallas Cowboys all the way, right? Like, iconic Cowboy and great career. They have him listed as a linebacker there, but really made his hay on the defensive line. And, like you said, went on to have a really good career, Hall of Fame career, Super Bowl MVP, you name it. I mean, this guy was Dallas football for a while.
Yeah, he came out of college as a linebacker,
yes.
And then Dallas ended up drafting another guy to play linebacker, so they moved him to end, and that's where he ended up staying.
Yeah.
But you talked about the mustache, but look at that hair.
Yeah,
gorgeous.
I know the flow, man. I'm telling you, these guys. And there's the Robert Brazile. He's this guy. Do some research on this guy if you don't know. And it's Houston Oilers linebacker, and it was fun reading about this guy because he sounds like he was an absolute force. That again, didn't really know that guy. I mean, of course, I've heard about Lambert and heard about Randy White, but I hadn't heard of this guy. So found a little bit more research about him, and 6'3", 230 some pounds, just could move like the wind. So a lot of comparisons. Like I said, Lawrence Taylor was kind of the mold that Robert Brazile started. So fun to read about this guy.
Yeah,
Hall of Famer, another one.
A lot of good NFL film stuff on YouTube too, if you want to see him in action. Then we got Ed Too Tall Jones, who was the first pick of the 74 draft. Again, didn't get a card for 2 years, even though he was the number 1 pick. Didn't get a card.
How about that? And he was the number 1 pick, and nicknamed Too Tall because if you flip the card over, which we don't have the back, he's 6'9.5". He's a big dude. He is too tall.
Right. Ended up being in a bunch of movies too. So he was, and that was the other thing. We'll talk about another movie star from this set, but a lot of these guys ended up doing a lot of acting.
One thing about Too Tall, one more thing about Too Tall. He left football for a year.
Yeah.
To try boxing.
He actually
unsuccessfully.
I think he was like an All-American baseball player too, and I think he was like All-State basketball player in high school. So just
But you know what? When you look at his NFL career, it wasn't very good. I mean, he didn't really. I think he was like a, it was more like a gimmick guy. I think people look at him as, he did all the things that we're talking about. So he was kind of like a sideshow. But if you look at his career, I think he made the Pro Bowl maybe once or twice. It wasn't too often. This guy had. I think I have him correct. Am I right about that, or maybe I'm wrong?
Yeah, no, it could be that, some of these guys, they've got a great nickname too. It kind of keeps them around because, like you say, they're a little bit of a show. But
Jaws is one of those guys, for crying out loud.
Yeah, for sure. Jaws was really a journeyman quarterback who kind of, took the Eagles to the Super Bowl in 1980, but really, not a guy that was thought of as like one of the better quarterbacks of the era by any means. So
no, but beloved, like you said, beloved in Philly and known probably because of his stints with ESPN now, right? That's right. Everybody knows him as Jaws, and you get that longevity with your career. You become known a little bit more through other things other than football. But from a football career, long career, but one-time Pro Bowl for Jaws. I mean, he was a one-timer. So, but this was his rookie year, and this is probably the best rookie quarterback card that turned out to be out of this set.
So this was his rookie card year, but he was actually drafted in the second round of the 1973 draft.
How about that?
So he had to wait a couple extra years before he got a card.
He turned 43 before he got a rookie card. No, just kidding. Yeah, so those are the rookies right there. So there's not a lot of, again, we talked about, there's some good rookies, but just not the iconic like quarterback rookies that you're looking for or things like that. So let's say you take Walter Payton out of there. It's a very average rookie class at this point.
Yeah. So there actually is one other rookie quarterback, and sorry we didn't have an image of this, but Brian Sype had his rookie.
Yes, that's true. That is correct.
And Brian Sype is a guy that is, again, not a household name. He actually was drafted in the 72 draft, 13th round, but he was the NFL MVP in 1980. That was back when you could throw for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns and become the MVP. Nowadays, we call that the 15th ranked passer in the league. But back then, that was a big deal.
I had never heard that name until I looked at this, and I didn't even realize that he had an MVP season.
Yeah, MVP in 1980, and then kind of fell off the map, and Bernie Kosar ended up coming in and being the guy there in Cleveland. But Brian Sype, 13th round of the 72 draft, first card in 1976. So
the oddities of Topps and the rookie year.
Yeah, just different world.
Yeah, another card moving away from some of the rookies. And this card is one of the cards that is highly sought after. It's a Super Bowl 10. It looks like an airbrushed Terry Bradshaw. It's the Steelers 21, Cowboys 17 card. Tough card to get, apparently, and tough card to get in good condition. But this is one of the more sought after cards in the set. And, Bradshaw just in general, I think, had a following. But, it's weird because there's nothing really special about the Bradshaw cards. I mean, he's been in the league for 5 years. He had a rookie card in 1970. So it wasn't like this was his second year or something like that, but he was just stacking up Super Bowls. And he's, again, like Jaws, Bradshaw has, a following that goes beyond his football years.
Yeah, I'll throw out a theory on that, and this was, back in 1976 when football cards weren't thought of as like gold. And I would guess just because Bradshaw was he's a personality now, but he was a personality back then.
Yes.
And they won Super Bowls, and that's a card that I'm sure kids walked around with all the time. And you've got some of these other cards, probably the Ron Jaworski card probably just sat in a closet in a box. The kids were probably walking around with the Bradshaw card, wanting to show everybody and trade and do those kinds of things. So, but yeah, this card I've never seen before. No. And like you said, it's hard to find. And I saw it. I'm like, wow, I don't remember ever seeing one of these before, but I want one. It's very cool.
And it's very rare when it comes to the number of these being graded. So that tells me that it's hard to find.
Yeah. Very cool card.
And then there's the base card of the Bradshaw with the neon pink Steelers and yellow football.
And you can see he's already well on his way there at that point to his current hairline.
Yes.
So
part of the bald brotherhood.
Right. And then
not a bald brother.
Yeah, this is his number one receiver, Lynn Swann.
Again, these cards, the kind of cards we've chosen and the players we've chosen are really based on the popularity and the value of the cards. So those are the cards that we're starting to kind of show and talk about on this show. Is we kind of look at the ones that people are talking about, or people are getting graded, or people are buying, and so that's where we ended up on this. And we talked about this earlier. A lot of Steelers and Cowboys in this era. You know, this was that, and then another guy who had a personality, right? had some success beyond football. How do you describe this guy? You
OJ
describe
Simpson.
This guy.
He's another one of those guys that was a great actor out of this group of football players, and he was in the Naked Gun movies and was awesome. He did have some trouble late night in the early 90s. Someone was dating someone he was close to, and he didn't like it. You know what's interesting, though, is I heard a story about OJ Simpson in 1976, and now we're like, it's foretelling, but back then I don't think it was a blip on the radar. But he actually got thrown out of a game and ended up being suspended for the rest of the season. He punched a guy in the face. It was like the last game of the season, or maybe the second to last game of the season. A little skirmish, and OJ wasn't having it, man. He threw a punch and hit a guy, and then his lineman kind of jumped in to break it up. But he actually had a shortened season because of that little fight at the end of the 76 season.
So this is his 6th year of him having a card, and like he was an icon at that time in the football world. Like he was first 5 seasons All-Pro, Hall of Famer. But as Norm Macdonald, the late great Norm Macdonald, would say, is he also killed his wife. All right, next card. Enough about OJ Simpson.
He's still looking for the murderer, actually.
And then we got the old Raj Staubach here, the star quarterback for the Cowboys. Again, neon green football behind the Cowboys. It just with the neon pink border and the name. It's just, it screams like the 70s. It's like the guy who did Studio 54 or whatever, the guy is like, hey, I want to come in and create cards. It's like, let's put neon everywhere. It's like, everybody's doing drugs back then. They probably thought this was a good idea to put neon coloring around these cards. But, this is a great picture of Brad.
Right. I wish I could have been there when they took this picture. There's no way that the photographer wasn't down on his knees. Like, we're going to get the sky in the background. You're going to look larger than life. This is going to be great. So great.
It does have the one thing Topps from the 70s did is they did a lot of airbrushing. It felt like obviously the pictures aren't crisp. They're not. And I get that. They're part of the, it's the film, it's the era and that sort of thing. But this was the closest to like real photography I think that they had done in previous years. And that Super Bowl 10 card we showed was more airbrush than any.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you can still feel this. Like it doesn't feel real. It almost feels like there's a lot of manipulation on these photos.
For sure. If I didn't tell you this was a 1976 card, it almost looks like kind of the way the photo looks. It almost looks like kind of an early 50s Bowman look to it.
Yes. Yeah. Right. It had that look. Hey, speaking of hair, here's the guy that couldn't get the Vikings over the hump. Good old Francis Tarkenton, but all pro. Got a lot of Vikings teams to Super Bowls, but another quarterback again, another iconic quarterback in this set. Another great from the past that you can grab from this set, and really good picture of Fran. I mean, smiling, looks like he's enjoying life despite losing a Super Bowl the year prior, he was going to lose the Super Bowl. So maybe this was pre-Super Bowl loss, so he might have been in a better mood than had this been snapped a year later.
Francis he still shows up at the Vikings games. You still see him walking around in the jersey, and just kind of a cool dude, and a guy that's just been around forever, and definitely loves the Vikings. He was kind of a fixture. I remember when you and I would go over to the games in the early 2000s and see him strutting around on the sidelines.
Yeah,
when we were there, but he was John Elway before we had John Elway. He was
absolutely 100%
moved around and made stuff happen. Mobile quarterback, and
that was a great,
cool guy. And here's the snake,
and the snake. So the quarterbacks you have, like we've shown Staubach, Tarkenton. Here's Kenny Stabler. We have Theismann in this set. We have Dan Fouts in this set. Bob Greasy, Steve Spurrier's in the set. Len Dawson. Like they were. You start thinking about these quarterbacks. I mean, that's a pretty darn good list.
Yeah, there's the Fouts card. I actually have this card.
Do you?
That's pretty. Yeah, Dan Fouts is one of those guys that if you want to kind of collect some of these old time quarterbacks, his cards are very, very affordable. You want to go out shopping. I'm always a bargain bin guy. You can find Dan Fouts in the bargain bin. He was something else back then. Like he was the guy that threw the ball all over the place. Played, kind of that quintessential AFL style football. They threw the ball around.
I don't think his stock went up much once he went to the booth.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people that felt like he wasn't very good, doing CBS games. And you're right, though. When you look at what he did in the past and during his career, it was really impressive. So, just some of the quarterbacks that we named here. And then there's the other, we talked a lot. We've mentioned it like 7 times, but like Steelers and Cowboys, Mean Joe Green, Franco Harris, Jack Ham, Jack Youngblood. These guys were. These are football. These are sport icons, and these are all guys that are in this set, and really, really cool cards for these guys. And I think I think the neon coloring, I think brings it back to that era. And the more I looked at the cards, I realized I kind of like them.
Yeah,
I kind of like the neon pink. And I had always seen the Walter Payton. Like I want the Walter Payton rookie card. That's been one of my cards that I've been chasing. I don't know what grade I want. I don't know how much I want to spend. Blah blah blah. But after looking at the other cards and looking at like the neon pink and the sky blue, teal, whatever, it's like, man, that's a cool looking card on all these guys that I don't think I would have collected if we hadn't, picked this set and I had looked at them.
Yeah, we had that Randy White card, and you saw the stash. But both of our kids play hockey, and just about all of the boys have that same hairdo. They got the wings and the feathered kind of sides and everything like that. So
he does.
Hairstyle is like cool again now. Like there's tons of kids walking around with that hair now too. So
and Randy started it for him.
Yeah,
and I'm sure his probably looked like that because he was wearing a cowboy hat. I mean, there's probably a really high probability of him wearing a cowboy hat in the 70s in Dallas, coming to practice, and I can probably bet he was wearing cowboy boots and a big old belt buckle. Like he just strikes me as that guy, denim on denim. Like he was a cowboy through and through. I think or a Texan through and through, if you will. Right. So definitely an icon in that state.
Yeah, these guys today, they make all the money, but when you make the money that you make today, I don't think you can go out in public. I think these guys probably went to the tavern in Dallas.
Oh, absolutely.
They were a big deal. Like, could you imagine playing for the Dallas Cowboys in the 1970s and living in Dallas? Like, you own the town.
Absolutely. Yeah, you could get what you wanted, but you didn't do it in an obnoxious way.
Right.
And there weren't phones everywhere to capture your every move. Right. So, I'm sure they got away with some stuff that was, less than desirable for them to have to live through in the, once it gets out. But what a way to live. And, one of the things that we always talk about with the sets that we talk about is the PSA reports. And so we've talked about the cards that have some interest from collectors. We've talked about the design. Now let's talk about the pop report. So 60,000 of these cards have been graded, which is quite a few. The one thing that you will find with this set, Chris, and we've talked about it, hard to find gem mint cards. This is about a 6 to 7% gem rate. So very, very low. And I would assume it has to do with many factors: the centering, the chipping of the white border, probably the print, the color of the cards, I would assume, get knocked pretty easily as well. The most common grade is an 8 with a 33%. That's about 21,000 of the cards have been 8s. 19,000 have been 9s. So the likelihood of you getting a 10 with these cards, whether you held on to them, whether you're looking at them now, like, it is very, very rare to get any type of 10 out of these cards. And so I did not have these cards. I have not held these cards. So I don't know exactly what the issue is, but my guess is, looking at the Walter Payton cards that I have looked at, there's a lot of that white chipping from the borders.
Yeah, chipping, and I just think, like I said, back then people just didn't care about cards the way they do now.
Yeah, that's true.
There
weren't top loaders.
Football especially, even at that point they were starting to become sophisticated baseball collectors, but football,
good point.
We look at football cards now, I would say, especially in the 2022, as kind of like the top dog. Basketball kind of for a couple years was really there. But I think right now, there's more. I know, like, our kids enjoy football cards more than really anything. And when you go out and you try to find product right now, I'd say football is the most difficult to find. But in 1976, no one really cared about football cards. Yeah. You could still go to I think you could go to the Super Bowl. I think the tickets to go to the Super Bowl in '72 were like $15. Like, it wasn't a big deal like baseball at the time. So
right.
I just don't think cards were really taken care of the way they are now. When when we go and start looking at research on a lot of these sets, everybody says, "Oh, the PSA 10 is worth this." When you start talking about cards from this era, a lot of times, they judge cards on what a PSA 8 sells for, just because it's hard to find sales certainly of 10s, but even of 9s. So some of these cards is really difficult to find.
Right. I'm going to just go through the list of the most graded cards from this set. Walter Payton is the most graded card. There's been over 10,000 of those cards graded, 53 10s. So we're looking at a very, very, very low gem rate of that. And that card goes for anywhere between, haven't seen any sales recently on eBay, but if you do some research and you look around, $60,000 to $75,000. I'm sure somebody's probably willing to pay more, knowing that there's 53 of them. Jack Lambert card, just under 2,000 graded, 27 10s. Randy White is your third most graded, 38 10s. Again, the most common are the 8s. That's the grade you're going to look at. And so Roger Staubach is number 4, Ed Tuchel Jones 5, Terry Bradshaw 6, OJ Simpson 7, Fouts 8, Lynn Swan 9, and Franco Harris is number 10. Some recent sales, and this is something you and I, Chris, haven't done in past shows, but I think it's a good indicator of where the market is right now. Randy White card, PSA 10, just sold for $2,200. A Ron Jaworski, $1,700. A John Riggins, who we haven't talked about, great running back from that era, $1,500. These are all PSA 10s. A Jack Ham, $1,500. Tarkington, $1,000. OJ Simpson, $325. So that's kind of the range for PSA 10s. Those 10s and some of the cards, and there were some other guys who I'd never heard of. They're not Hall of Famers, and their cards, PSA 10s, were selling for around $900 to $1,000, because I think they're just so rare. And if you're looking to build this set, or you're looking for cards that are unique and have those low pops, this is the set to find your 10s. And people were paying a pretty good premium for it. But like you said, Chris, judging these cards on 10s is really hard. A Walter Payton 9 goes for about $5,000-$6,000. Probably cut that in half, maybe even a little less for an 8. And, that's kind of where the market is. So definitely a lot of value in these cards, even from a 9 and an 8 perspective, because that's where really these cards are, their ceiling is that 8 and 9. So even the 9s, the number of 9s, when we talk about the Walter Payton card being graded 10,000 times, there's only 685 9s. So typically, that's the number you hear with 10s. So the fact that there are, when we look at the numbers, just over 700 of these cards out there that are 9s or better, that's a pretty low rate. And it really drives those prices up. So, people like me who want that card, it's going to be hard to try and get that card to come down in price because there are so few of them.
Yeah, in the raw market, you can find that card anywhere from basically 150 to maybe $300, depending on condition. It kind of goes all over the place. But yeah, I think just finding these commons in great condition is very valuable, and it's one of the things actually I did just recently. I go shopping at some places I know where I can find vintage cards, and I literally just go through them looking for cards I think would grade high, even if they're commons. When you get baseball cards from the 60s and football cards from the 70s and find high grade commons, you can sell them on the raw market for $5 to $10 right now because there are collectors that are looking for that thing. So it doesn't surprise me that there's tens of commons out there selling for close to $1,000, especially in PSA, because there are people that are trying to build for that PSA set registry, and they want high graded commons just to fill their set so they can say they have the highest graded 1976 Topps football set. So finding those people are, that's kind of a cool thing to do.
And I think they're out there because one of the things that stood out to me was the price on some of the checklists, because this was an era of checklists too. So there were many checklists in this set, and a lot of people were getting those. I don't want to say a lot, but there were a fair share that were graded, and had high grades, and they were fetching a pretty good price. So it just shows you that everything in that set has some value, and it was a fun walk down memory lane to a set that again. My view of this set has always been through one card, the Walter Payton card, and to explore it a little bit more was enjoyable. And in an era that obviously, as I mentioned right off the top, you and I were not part of because we were just being born.
Yeah, and we both came into it pretty late in the year too. So it wasn't like we were maybe 9-10 months old and we could remember stuff. I mean, we were very young when we went to 77. So
I wish my parents would have welcomed me with a box of 1976 football for packs were 15 cents, and they could have just said, we're going to save this until your 50th birthday, and we're going to snake it away and surprise you. And they didn't do that. So there goes my retirement. I'm going to have to keep on working. But can you imagine having that box given to you and just at this point in time and just feel like, how awesome would that be to have one of those boxes and rip those packs? I think that would be the coolest thing. I think that would be so cool to be able to rip a pack of 1976 Topps football. And those packs are selling for, what do you say? I didn't look, about 1,000?
Well,
did
actually,
you say about 500?
No, you can get the packs right now for about $100 to $120 a pack.
Really?
But here's the thing, though: if you want a box is going to cost you $5,000 to $7,000, and so that computes to like $150 to $200 a pack. And the problem is, and you find this with a lot of vintage product, is every one of these packs is highly susceptible to tampering. Yes. So when you have a box that looks intact, especially if you have a box that would be wrapped, which is very, very hard to come by, those sell for premium dollars because the packs, you go and buy a pack for $125. I actually looked tonight at a couple of them on eBay, and it said right in the description, this pack may have been tampered with. We got it at an estate sale. We don't know the history of it, and so you're buying that pack totally as a lottery ticket. And I would guess that the lottery ticket would be probably pretty slim chances of winning. 520 cards in the set, 10 cards in a pack. So theoretically, you would need 52 packs to get a Walter. So.
Sure. Yeah, that's you start breaking down the odds, and again, the issue with, a pack being, legit. Mm-hmm. That's part of why, of course, I would never pay $125 for it, but an authenticated one, maybe those are a little bit more. I assume they are more expensive, but I think it would be a really fun rip. Obviously, pie in the sky dream, never going to happen type of rip, but really fun set to kind of go through and,
for sure,
and look at and see. And I think, Chris, you're right. I think that my, not my advice, this is my takeaway from what you said, is let's look for some of these cards in the wild. Not just the Walter, not just the guys we talked about, but there's a lot of value potentially in some of the common cards. So if you see 1976 football at your local shop or your local card show, stop by and take a look. You might find a hidden gem that maybe nobody else knows is out there.
Yeah, and these cards as singles are very, very easy to come. And I don't want to say easy to come by, but they're very affordable. And that Jack Lambert card, in a mid grade is about a $20 card. You can get a high grade raw, for $30 to $40. So we're not talking about tons of money here. If you wanted to go out and get some of the, the Dan Fouts type of stuff, you can get that, under $10. So if you want to get into the set and kind of just make these things part of your collection, which I love to do, and we talked about the backs of these cards, just having it as part of kind of history and going back and looking at what life was like in 1976. It's just fun to own this stuff. So if you want to just kind of get a taste of this collection and put a little bit of it in your collection, your PC, very affordable, very, very easy to do.
Ready to put a ball on this one?
Let's do it.
All right. Yeah, thanks for watching. And we always want to throw this at the end, podcast. We're on the show live. We're on YouTube every Wednesday night, 10:30 Central Time. Go to our YouTube channel, give us comments, let us know. If you're listening to us on YouTube, go to wherever you get your podcast, search for Cardfellas. We're there. We're trying to be places, and we're trying to meet people where they are, as they say, and get the information out to you guys. And we love to hear the feedback back. So wherever you're getting us, let us know what you think about what we're talking about, and add your voice to the conversation, because that's where we get a lot of great ideas too.
For sure.
And we love to hear things. The comment section can be positive. Let's show people that it can be. And we love to hear from everybody who listens.
Absolutely. For Matt, I'm Chris. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Talk to you next time.